Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Pitchlight Chronicles. I am Uncle Tats. I'm here with Donald and Rob, and for some reason, my laptop decided to act like it is a Monday, and it keeps locking up. So I apologize if there are any delays. So the one thing that was not delayed was the advancement and the advantage of having one of the better pitching staffs in the league, because our pitching on the Yankees really did quiet down one of the top offenses in the league going into this year in the American League. So, although I got it, I was getting a text from Mazda. I'm out on the boat, and he's like, could you believe 5 innings, 101 pitches from Cole? This can't be good. And I look at my phone, I look at the score, and I went, uh-oh. It was one of those, you didn't know which direction the game was going to go yesterday. And I'm like, okay, let's just see how this goes. And you really do have to hand it to this bullpen that has been the only thing that's keeping this team afloat.
That's right.
They might have a batter or, a batter or two where you kind of like, all right, come on, don't do this. And they're figuring it out on how to navigate. And when you think about a team with the offense like the Texas Rangers, you have to kind of just say, you know what? If this is sustainable, and I believe at this stage of the season it is, the Yankees can weather the storm, waiting for the offense to really click. We saw a little bit yesterday, with the late inning rallies, but we've been talking a lot about the offense and the lack of having Judge and the slumps of Stanton and all of these guys. But I don't think the pitching department is really getting the credit of what they've been able to do. How are you guys feeling about the pitching staff being able to really hold down offenses like the Rangers?
Which one do you want us to go first?
It doesn't. Rob, you spoke first. You go first.
They deserve all the credit in the world. They've been fantastic, and that's with less than 100% staff the entire season. So between Cole and Schmidt, as of late, has been lights out. Even Herman at times has been good. Burritos gave us some good starts. Vasquez has given us some good starts. And then the bullpen hasn't really missed a beat, even without a couple of key guys. And we're going to get Hamilton back tomorrow. So another weapon added. It's fantastic what they've been able to do, because without them and this offense being as bad as it's been without Aaron Judge, you're looking at a 500 at best team. And if not, they'd be a few games below. So, this pitching staff, the entire coaching staff for the pitching side deserves a whole lot of credit. These guys are figuring it out. Even when they have rough days, you just kind of go, okay, well, that happens, because it hasn't happened very often where a pitching has just been so bad. And when it has happened, it's been like one guy that's really just gotten roughed up, and that's Herman. He has like 3 starts or so where he's just getting absolutely torched. So, fantastic job by this pitching staff.
Yeah, the bullpen has to be extremely proud of themselves. Yeah. Even Cordero, he's been really good lately. He's been so important. And, Mike King got a key save after he's been slumping a little bit. He came around and came through. Marinaccio coming through with a big save. What about Clay Holmes, who, I'm always quick to criticize. This has been fantastic for a couple months now. He's been fantastic. So it's just the whole bullpen has really come through. And they've been asked to log a lot of innings. There's been a lot of pressure on them. They're, apart from Garrett Cole, yesterday aside, our starters haven't given enough in innings. But the bullpen just comes through all the time. They keep us in games. And that's why we're above 500. That's why we're still in a shout of a wild card, because of our bullpen. And you know what? I love that the bullpen picked up Garrett Cole. And the whole pitching staff has really come through, apart from Herman, as you say. It's quite remarkable. Even Severino had a huge start. He's been struggling. He had a huge start the other day. the pitching this whole weekend has been marvelous because the offense is so boring. Like, but apart from that little breakout there in the eighth inning, it's so boring. But the bullpen's been phenomenal, and they all deserve a lot of credit.
It's been one of those. Yeah, we've seen that. With Severino's return, it hasn't been the crispest of his starts. He's had a couple of ones where he wasn't really on his game. We were very critical with Cortez. With the workload that he's had to endure the last couple of years, may have caught up to him this year, where he wasn't, that go-to guy where you really felt comfortable in his start. But even if they're not on their game, they're the ones that are keeping the Yankees alive and in the games and making them winnable. It's just a matter of the lack of, the problem is the lack of offense. And Damian brings up, let's give a quick shout out to the chat. What's going on, Jonathan, Li, Damian, Steve, Booger Brain, D-Rod? Appreciate you guys hanging out with us right now. But he brings up this thing where the pitching has absolutely not been the problem, and realistically hasn't been for 2 seasons. It's always been the offense. And I think that's one of the sentiments that we've been saying the last few years with the postseason. It's not the pitching that's letting us down. It's been the lack of offense. It's the lack of contact hitters. The offense that can keep the line moving has been the problem. Judge not having the best postseason numbers. LeMahieu being hurt last year, Bader not being, just coming back as hot as he was in the postseason. Not being in a full rhythm. So it really has been the offense that's been the Yankees' Achilles heel over the last few seasons, with not really gaining any ground in the postseason run. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, what are we going to do? We need to get this pitcher. We should have gotten that guy. Why'd you trade for this guy? Montas is not even really a thought in a lot of people's minds, aside from it just being a bad trade. It really hasn't come back and bit us in the ass that we don't have Montas in the rotation. Let's give credit to Brito. Brito has been called up. Vasquez is another guy who, got a couple of spot starts and kind of performed well. Schmidt has been very solid, and then with the, you brought up that Hamilton will be back, tomorrow. I think that the reassurance, Canley being able to come back and really kind of give us what we were hoping for. The pitching has been the only bright spot of the season so far.
No doubt.
For sure. Absolutely. And it's only going to get better because Rodon looked fantastic in his second rehab start, and he's on track, I think, for July 5th to come back against Baltimore, so that'd be nice to get him back. And the pitching's only going to get better with the guys we have coming back. And if Severino can build off that last start, Clark Schmidt has really turned his season around because he looked like he wasn't going to make it as a starter. It looked like he was going to be maybe optioned again or moved to the bullpen full time, but he's really turned it around. You know what you're going to get with Garrett Cole, and hopefully when Nestor Cortez comes back, he can just be a solid 5, maybe 6 inning guy. He can be more like he was last year than he's been this year. So the pitching hasn't been an issue for a while, and we desperately need the offense to kind of back these guys up because they're not going to give you 3 runs, 2 runs, or giving up very little runs per night, especially against a team like Texas. That's very, very, very good pitching that we had this weekend to hold that lineup to below 4 runs every game or 4 runs or lower. And the only time they beat us is when they had to go into extras and get that ghost runner to score. So the pitching's been fantastic. Schmidt looked great. Severino looked great. And even Cole was able to battle when he didn't have his best stuff. And that tells you a lot about what these guys are able to do. And the fact that the bullpen, in a guy that, Donald mentioned every name that stepped up, Nick Ramirez, another guy that's come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he stepped up. And it really makes me wonder who's getting sent down for Hamilton. And when we get Loizaga back, who's getting sent down for him? Like, there's a lot of options there that the Yankees might have to entertain moving somebody. And that goes to an earlier report from SNY that I think the Mets would be willing to take a bad contract like Donaldson to get some bullpen help. The Yankees have a ton of bullpen arms. Maybe that could be a way to get rid of somebody. But they have a luxury of bullpen arms, and someone's going to have to get sent down, and we're not going to like the decision because everyone's pitching well right now. Even Abreu has been better lately. I still don't trust him. I give him a clean inning, but with there's guys on, you don't put him in the game. But he's not going to get option because he'd have to get DFA'd. So it's a tough decision coming up, but that tells you how strong our bullpen has been.
Yeah, look at so I've got some of the numbers for our bullpen here. Tommy Kahnle has a 0.00 ERA in 9 2/3 innings. 10 games he's taken part in. 10 strikeouts, just 3 hits. So 0 ERA for him. Nick Ramirez, as you mentioned, Rob, 1.56 ERA, 14 Ks and 17 1/3. He's not giving up any runs either. Then you go down to Clay Holmes. He's actually had terrific. He's had a terrific year. 40 strikeouts in just 32 innings, which is an average of 11 strikeouts over 9 with 2.50 ERA for him. And he's got 9 saves, 5 holds, so that's solid. Winning record too. So he's actually pitched great. Monty Peralta 2.67 ERA. Jonathan Loizaga 2.70 ERA. Garrett Cole's been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. 2.78 ERA, 113 strikeouts in 103 innings. Only given up the 10 home runs so far. His strikeouts per inning is about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's just been wonderful, really. 3 WAR as well. So he's been by far our best starter. Our starters haven't pitched well, though. Our starters have not pitched particularly well. But Clark Schmidt has actually turned things around, because if you look at our starters, apart from Garrett Cole, Severino's ERA is 5.25, Cortez ERA is 5.16, Herman's ERA is 10, Brito's ERA is 5. Clark Schmidt has actually been the next best starter after Garrett Cole. Oddly, Clark Schmidt 4.30 ERA, so that's actually going down. He's been pitching much better. Yeah. It's really quite remarkable how much he's improved over the last few games. So the pitching has actually been great, and it's mostly been the bullpen. He's had quality starts over his last 5 outings. Every single one. Quality.
I'm looking at this comment here from LI. The only thing that he's concerned with the pitching staff is the innings eater, because Schmidt max innings in a year is 90. He's at 77. So he's 13 away from that. And I think we saw the same concerns with Cortez when they max out their career high. The repercussions that can come. Not that they will, but that possibility is always there. I think that Schmidt has been one of those guys where a month ago we were questioning how much faith we really had in him. Because once he got through that, once he was getting past the first turn of their lineup, he was having some trouble getting the batters out. And you're seeing a little bit, especially with Domingo, with that 2-strike pitch, that they're just unable to really just put the guys away, where they'll go to 0-2 and then it turns into a 10-pitch at bat. Those, yes, that is concerning, but they are still limiting the runs that cross the board. They are getting the ground outs, they're getting the pop-ups, they're getting weak fly balls, so they're able to kind of not get completely destroyed on the mound where they're giving it up. I think that's where you kind of gain a little bit of confidence, especially let's tie this back to Schmidt. I think that the pressure or the pressure or the hearing in the locker room, or maybe hearing the outside traffic where put him in the bullpen might have kind of gotten to him, and he's kind of has a new focus about him. I think you ride the wave with him until you have no choice but to make a decision, regardless of how many innings he's pitched.
Yeah, and again, when we do get we got 2 starters on the comeback trail within the next month, maybe. So that's going to help things out. maybe you move Herman to the bullpen. And if you need to kind of have a tag team effort with Schmidt and Herman in a game where Schmidt's limited to a few innings and then you go to Herman, maybe he pitches better out of the bullpen. But Schmidt's the biggest turnaround is he's getting lefties out now. He couldn't do that at all. Like lefties were tagging him left and right. And now the cutter is moving better. He's going to different pitches. He's not relying solely on the cutter. And the biggest thing is he's getting left-handed hitters out. And that's huge. So now he's able to give you 5. And he should have, this offense is not giving him any support because over his last, I think, 5 starts, his ERA is like just above 1. And the offense has scored a total of 9 runs in those games. So he should be a lot better, like record-wise, which I know that's why record isn't really looked at anymore in terms of win-loss. Because remember DeGrom a few years ago for the Mets, he had a terrible record, or not a good record, but his ERA was like 1. And Herman a few years ago had 19 wins, but his ERA was over 4. So that's what win-loss is it's kind of a skewed stat at this point. But yeah, I mean Schmidt, whatever he's doing, keep it going. And if you have to start to limit his innings, but the fact that we're in June, he's 13 innings away, that's 2, maybe 3 starts that he reaches that. You can't start limiting him in July. You can't really do that. You need him right now. But
you're right, Rob. The Yankees have lost all 5 starts that Clark Schmidt has actually pitched over his last 5 games, but he hasn't given up any more than 3 runs in any of these starts. So the first one of mention was in Seattle. He lost 1-0 after 10 innings. He pitched 5 2/3 shutout. They lost the White Sox 3-2 in his next start. 6 innings, just 3 runs given up. And then they lost to Boston after that 3-2 after 10 innings. He only gave up 1 run in his outing. And then the next start against Boston, they lost 6-2. Again, he gave you just 2 runs. He only gave up. And then he pitched a shutout against Texas. Almost 6 innings, just 1 run given up. And they lost in extras again. So there's 3 of the last 5 games ended up being losses after 10 innings. But he's doing his job. He's keeping the team in the game. And the bullpen's doing his job too. It's just the offense has been so pathetic.
Well, I think that's what kind of highlights, when you have a starter that gives up, a home run in a tough spot. Like if you have 2 outs in an inning, you give up a walk and a home run, it's like, what the hell are you doing? How could you make that mistake? But it really, when the offense is so abysmal like it's been, it just amplifies, the frustration of, these pitchers are not going to be perfect every game. Even our ace, we saw it yesterday with Cole. They can't throw perfect games and no hitters every time, waiting for the offense to click. I think the focus needs to, any criticism should never. I'm going to say it at this stage, the pitching staff deserves no blame at all. We lost an extra inning game where we only put up 1 run. It's not the bullpen's fault that, a hot offense finally got the hit that they were looking for. Why aren't we getting the hit that we needed? We were the home team. We had the ghost runner as well. Why couldn't we capitalize on that? Because the offense sucks. Now it goes to, how could he make that pitch? How can so and so make that pitch? It's not. It's unfair. It really is, and it really it's doing such a disservice to the talking points of how the games get analyzed. So I want to take a quick sidestep because I saw this comment from Booger Brick. Any news on Nestor? The last that we've heard from Nestor, I saw an MLB notification yesterday that he is starting to throw. And that's really all they said. So we don't know. There's been no announcement on a timetable on him that I've seen. And so we'll keep our fingers crossed. LI, followed up his comment with, is he a starter pitcher long term? I think that's still undetermined. If they decided to stick with him as a starting pitcher, I would have no problem with it. Same thing with Herman. I'll put the 2 of them in the same boat. If they decide to make, Cortez and Herman more of a bullpen role as we get, Rodon back, and one of those guys gets kind of shifted, which, if they're able to still do what they're doing and keep the Yankees in the game and get outs, I think that it's one of those things we're gonna have to. All right, I would trust Matt Blake to be able to get these guys mentally prepared for whatever role they have to adjust to.
I'd keep Cortez in the rotation. He's been obviously he's hurt. We talked about the injury when it was announced. It clearly seemed to be affecting him as he threw more in the game, but you can't deny that he was able to give you 4 strong innings every single start. It wasn't until the 5th that he started to get roughed up. So maybe because you're going to have this luxury of starting pitching all of a sudden when we get healthy, maybe that's when you go to Cortez get us through the first 3-4 innings, and then you can go to somebody else like Herman. You can do that with Schmidt as well. You can use Herman as that proverbial 6th starter, or maybe you call somebody up in September like Johnny Brito again, or Vasquez, or even Montas comes pitching at some point this year. That's still a possibility. I don't think it'll happen, but it could happen. So there's going to be decisions that have to be made. A lot of decisions that have to be made. How do you have a 6-man rotation? Do you have a 6-man rotation? Do you go Herman is the long man? Who's the long relief pitcher? Do you skip a start every so often? Because we know when Rodon comes back, he'll be limited to maybe 5 innings or 75 pitches, and then it'll gradually go up like they did with Severino. A lot's going to have to be done, but I don't think Cortez should be questionable at this point because he was really good last year. He was good the year before, and this year he's just ran into a lot of trouble in the 5th inning, but you're still seeing he has the stuff that can be at least a bottom of the rotation starter, 4 or 5 guy. He was never supposed to be a number 2 behind Garrett Cole, but he pitched that way last year. We all had that expectation of him doing that again. And I think we need to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. If he ends up being like a 5-inning starter at the bottom of the rotation, that's perfectly fine because every team can use that as a number 5 starter. We certainly can. So I don't want to give up on Cortez just yet. He's had a rough year for sure, but I don't think he's a bullpen arm. I think Herman's a bullpen arm. I think Herman should be on the chopping block sooner than later, but we kind of need him right now to eat innings if he doesn't give up 10 runs.
Yeah, so the latest update from Aaron Boone said he's about a week away from possibly throwing from a mound. But, I mean, so that he's a ways off still because he'll need to do that. And then obviously probably pitch simulated games, maybe obviously then do a minor league stint. He's still a ways away. So I wouldn't expect him anytime soon necessarily. I don't think you'd expect him before the All-Star break anyway. But at least there's a possibility he'll be ready to throw from a mound in the next week or so. But yeah, I don't know about Nestor Cortez. He's also going to be a big part of our rotation. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. It's just he needs to figure out how these adjustments.
We kind of lost you a little bit there, Rob, Donald. But I want to, that goes to Booger Brain's question here. With a lot of the cryptic injury updates, they say very Mets-like. No, I'm sorry. I will say this: nobody has perfected the cryptic injury updates like the Yankee organization. Okay, we know that for a fact. We can go through the Yankee dictionary again. If they say they're going to be out for 10-day IL, they'll end up on the 60. If they're on the 60, they'll be back in a week. And if they say it's day by day, they'll be out for the year. They never get it right. So, we're seeing that a lot. And I actually, I had a laugh. I was talking with a guy that I was fishing with yesterday, who was a Yankee fan, and we were, kind of BSing in between. And we almost made like a little bet. And he's like, all right, what happens first? Judge comes back from the IL before, does he come back from the IL before Donaldson hits a meaningful home run? Yeah. So, you're seeing a lot of these, nobody knows what's going on. It's, we had to wait until Judge spoke himself for him to actually finally admit, even though we all suspected that, we knew that there was something with the ligament. the Yankees weren't going to come out and say it was a torn ligament. Judge had to say it. And I think that's very disturbing and really just increases the lack of trust with the information that comes from the front office. Rob, what did you think about that?
It was never a good look because they waited when he first got hurt. Like they waited like 2 or 3 days. And I remember saying, like, just IL him just for this, just to be safe. Even if it was a 10-day thing like the last injury, better safe than sorry. And I know it doesn't really matter if you wait because it's retroactive to the last game you played, but and then you have the news come out where Judge has to be the one to say, yeah, I tore a ligament and he has no timetable. I still think he's going to play this year, but like, why do they always got to do this? Like when we're finding out about injuries, I mean, I they knew the information when he first got the test in. They had to have known something was torn, but they told him it was this weird like contusion thing and whatever they said it was. And then we find out weeks later that it's a tear. And it's on the foot that he has to his back foot. So it's difficult in order for you to be able to swing the bat and, of course, to run. So, I mean, how long is he going to be out for is the question. We don't know. There is no answer for it. And that's why it's been so cryptic. But I don't know why they didn't just come out and say from the get-go that it was a tear. I don't know. What are they trying to do? Like, not have a panic? We're already panicking. Once we saw Aaron Judge out of the lineup, there was a panic. And we're seeing why, because we don't score without him. I wish they'd just be up front when it first happened.
Yeah. I think it was, I want to hear your take on this, Donald. I think it was more of a PR move to kind of withhold information. They know that they're going into the summer, school's letting out, kids are going to want the game, parents are going to want to schedule to go to games because the kids want to see Aaron Judge. So they're not going to come out and say, well, he's going to be out till September, because that's going to kill the ticket sales for the summer. So they're going to leave you in suspense, with taking it on a weekly basis or a day by day. I think that's really what they're trying. I think that's what they were trying to do. And the longer it went on without significant information, they kind of put their backs against the wall because Aaron Judge finally spoke out.
There's a strong chance of that. It's possible that Aaron Judge broke what their plan was, or ruined what their plan was. Let's keep things quiet and just keep kind of moving it on. There's a possibility. The other possibility, which is also very strong, is that our medical staff just isn't very freaking good. They've been misdiagnosing injuries, well, for the last 5 years minimum, if not longer. They've been misdiagnosing injuries. They've been bringing back guys sooner than they really needed to be. They've been forcing guys back before they were fully healthy, getting them more hurt. Sometimes they've been screwing things up for years in the medical field. The Yankees have done a terrible job with injuries. They're the most injured team in the league by an absolute margin. And it doesn't matter how much money Hal Steinbrenner throws at this thing, Brian Cashman can't seem to hire the right people. So there's a very good possibility that they just missed it, that they're just not very good at their jobs because they didn't diagnose that Aaron Judge didn't he injure his lung? Or no, he hurt his rib, right?
Yeah, you had the rib injury, yeah.
The rib injury, right. And it was sore for him to breathe because he had a rib injury, but they didn't diagnose it. They didn't know what it was. So this medical staff is just terrible at what they do. So it's not a surprise to me that they misdiagnosed this, that they were like, oh, maybe it's just a strain, when it's far more serious than that. That's the other possibility. So it's either that or it's what you say, Tats, where they were like, okay, this is probably a lot more serious, but we don't want to affect ticket sales. And also, maybe it's not just ticket sales. Maybe they don't want to affect the morale of the team because you saw how this team just basically gives up without Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Until this weekend, this team is basically given up without Aaron Judge. So maybe they're like, okay, let's keep things on the down low. Let's try and keep things positive because we don't want to completely derail this team if there's a chance that there's no Aaron Judge for the rest of the year. It could really affect the morale on the team. That's another possibility. My personal belief is that they're just very bad at their jobs. The medical staff. Incompetency here, as Jonathan says.
Yep.
I'm going with that.
Rob, your thought?
I don't think it was a ticket sale thing because the Yankees are still selling out games. This series, they had a sellout, I think, yesterday, and it was a pretty packed house the entire way through. So they're still showing up with or without Aaron Judge. I don't think they're doing it to keep ticket sales up because everyone who watches the sport and keeps up on social media, which everybody has Twitter nowadays, basically, will tell you Aaron Judge ain't going to be playing tomorrow, or like they're not going to be like he's not playing next week. So like, why would that affect ticket sales? We all knew it was going to take a while. Like when the injury first happened, they put him on the IL. We're talking like the first thing we heard was it could be 2 weeks, it could be 4, it could be 6. We don't know. So you're not going to do that and be like, oh, well, he's coming back in 2 weeks. Let me buy a ticket for the game 2 weeks from now. That wasn't the case. And people are still going to the games. The Yankees, even with really a lot worse rosters than we have right now, they were still going in 2013. And that was the year we were relying on Vernon Wells and all these guys to try to provide some offense. So I don't think that's the case. Remember, there was no A-Rod. I think Jeter was hurt that year as well. And they were still going. It's not going to keep ticket sales down. I highly doubt that's the case. It'd be very messed up if it was. I think Donald's point is the right one. This medical staff just isn't good. Because how many players have we gotten hurt over the past? Not even 5. It goes back further. You can say this was back in the Jeter days and the early 2010s. It's been like this for a while, where a player got hurt and they said. Even Girardi would say the same thing. Like, hey, we expect him to be out for a few days, maybe a week or so, and it ended up being a month. This has been the case for a long time, and they had to revamp the entire staff, and we still have the same issue. So everything, it just seems like no matter what we talk about on this show, there's always a way to point back to the same common denominator for a lot of this team's issues, and that's who hires these people. And that's the general manager. It's bringing all these different people in. So it's just a bad training staff, or they just don't. And this is a tricky injury. Let's be honest here. It's not every day that somebody tears a ligament in their toe, running into a concrete freaking slab. So, I mean, it's difficult to diagnose it, but the fact that this team has such a history of misdiagnosing injuries, we shouldn't be surprised. This is another case of a team just not knowing what's going on. But at least they're admitting it.
And there's part of the reason why Stanton can't hit right now is because they brought him back before he had any type of time in minor league ball to get himself up to speed. They just rushed him through. They were like, shit, we need somebody. We need a body. He'll figure it out at the major league level, but he was making him look more pathetic than he actually is because, again, they were just not doing their jobs. I mean, obviously, he needed time to rehab. By the way, Bader, they tried to push Bader back, but Bader was like, no, anyway, I need a few more games in minor league ball to fully test out my hamstring, fully get back healthy. And look at the difference, because he's back and he's not missed a beat. So I just don't think they're very good at their jobs. I just think they're actually quite terrible at their jobs. And it's almost incumbent on the player himself to actually speak out and save themselves, because the Yankees are going to do something bad to you. Trust me. You're about to get hurt, the Yankees will find a way to get you hurt.
No, but I also agree with the fact, where I see the comment here. There was one about with the trade deadline. This is one of them. I think it is going to affect the trade market. It's not unrealistic for a team to be like, well, like you said, we know the Judge is out. We know you're desperate, even though you're still in the wild card, situation. Well, they'll handcuff the Yankees on an average year. Never mind a year where we're really, struggling to score. They're really they when they smell blood on the Yankees, they try to take advantage of it, whether it's a paper cut or a completely torn arm. They don't care. They're going to try to to steal anything and fleece the Yankees. I think this is really going to make the trade deadline a lot more complicated for Cashman.
It was already going to be complicated because there's nobody available. At first, we were thinking Bellinger, but the Cubs are right there in the race for the Central because that division stinks. So the Cubs might be making a playoff push. Why would they trade Bellinger if that's the case? The only bats you can maybe think of teams that are definitely not going to be in it, like Grichuk, but is he really going to provide you that much offense to go make a trade for him? The Giants aren't trading anybody now. People thought if they were out of the race, maybe Jock Peterson would be on the market, but they're in first place, or I'm sorry, they're leading the wild card or second in the wild card, but they're right there with Arizona in the West. But that extra playoff spot, there's a lot of teams that are competing right now. And there's only a few teams that you know are not competing. That's like Oakland. There's nobody on that team that would help us offensively. Kansas City, I don't think there's anybody on that team that's going to help us too much offensively. No one in the East is going to trade with us because the entire division is still competing. You look at the NL West, again, Colorado might have – there's Grichuk, but that's really it. The Central is – you have St. Louis, but who do they have? Tyler O'Neill? Like, he's a fast guy with some pop, but they probably want a lot for him, and I don't think we really need that right now. You know, there's really no one available.
That screams difference maker.
No, there hasn't been. There has not been the entire time through, and that's to LI's credit. He has been saying this for a very long time, that there's been nobody has really been available outside of who was a free agent and the potential, the very slim possibility that we got Brian Reynolds, which I don't think was ever realistic to try to expect that. There was nobody out there, which is, again, an issue. Why didn't we sign somebody in free agency when we had 4 or 5 options that we could have had? And that's what we keep pointing back to. We didn't sign another bat because the trade market was already thin for the position that we needed, and now it's even more thin because there's so many more teams in contention. Like, you could have signed Bellinger to a 1-year deal. You could have signed Conforto. You could have signed Yoshida. You could have brought back Benintendi. You could have made an early
trade for Soto last year.
Could have traded for Soto last year. You could have even made a small trade for a guy like Kepler, although he hasn't been good, so I'm glad they didn't do that. But there were options in the offseason. But waiting till the trade deadline, you might as well just stick with McKinney because he's given you more than what you probably get from a trade for a guy like Grichuk right now.
Yeah, Steve actually agrees with that. He would keep McKinney over trade prospects for Bellinger. It was his comment. TC Steels, what's going on, TC? Cashman will try to reach for someone he thinks will help and end up hurting us even more. That's always a possibility.
Andrew Heaney.
Yeah. Pirates are going to sell, but who realistically are they going to? Steve also said, Rooker would help us with, but no, Rooker I don't believe would be on the move. D-Rod, Yankees didn't sign Bellinger because of previously bad contract trades. That's also very true. So there is one, and I'm only pulling this up because there are different names than we've ever seen in the past. And so LA Yankee King, all right, he would move Donaldson, Brito, and Chaparro with the Rockies for Freeland. And what is that? Freeland and a 65th pick? We were just saying the whole start of the show is how the bullpen's been fine, and we actually need to figure out how to make moves in the bullpen to make room for our key guys some key guys coming back. Why would you increase the complexity of your bullpen alignment? Where the
Freeland's a starter. I think Freeland's a starter.
Is he a starter? Okay.
Still, we don't need another starter.
I'm familiar with Freeland, so I'm but I just thought, we're already having an issue with, the pitching is not the problem. Why do we continue feeling the need to trade for more pitching? We need bats. The bats are the fucking problem, not the pitching. That's what I don't understand. You have to make it make sense to pass up trading for a bat for pitching. It has to make sense.
No, I wouldn't trade for another pitcher unless someone got hurt again. But didn't Freeland just give up like 10 runs to the Angels or something? I don't know. Like, the Angels have scored 25 runs in a game the other night. But But in all honesty, there is nobody really out there to go get, and there hasn't been for a long time. So again, this goes back to something we've been talking about. Why not just give some of our minor leaguers a shot? And we've been talking about two names in particular. Why not see what Florial can do for you? And why not get Peraza up here? Hopefully he's healthy because he's been dealing with something in AAA. But when he is healthy, I think he should be here. Considering they haven't played Donaldson in the last 3 games, he hasn't started. And they had to have a conversation in the dugout or the office yesterday, and then he said – Boone said he's going to play a lot, which I don't know why he would. He hasn't been good. Oh, he's hitting the ball hard. The results are not there. He's not been hitting the ball well at all for 2 years. I don't know what there more is to see with him, but I don't know why they don't just give a shot to some of their other guys. But Bowers and McKinney have given you more than expected, and to be honest, you're probably not getting that kind of production from anyone on the market right now because there really isn't anybody on the market. You have to wait another month. If the Cubs fall out of the race, then maybe Bellinger becomes available. But right now it's June 26th. We still got a month plus till the deadline. It's August 1st now. A lot can happen in a month. We could be out of the race. We could be sellers.
Yep.
Well, that's how I want this. I want to close it out with this question. Okay. Let's just say, they announced that Judge is going to be out for the year, right? And the Yankees are where they are at this moment with their record, the divisional standings, and the wild card standing. Do you believe that the Yankees would be smart to start getting ready for next year when Judge is back and healthy, or do they just try to stay the course and try to make a push for that postseason run?
Good question.
Well, if they're in a playoff spot, they're not trading him. They're not selling. They should still look to move a bullpen piece or two, though, just to get something back. I don't know who would be. Yeah, but in terms of selling, who do we really have to trade? Bader, maybe. Torres, maybe. But if their record is still like right now, it'll be 9 games over 500, 8 or 9 games. So if we're 8 games over 500, whether it's the second or third spot, they ain't trading Gleyber Torres, and they're not trading Harrison Bader. That leaves you like one other option, and that's maybe Wandy Peralta. Oh. I wouldn't trade Severino because then again, if he's pitching like this, which has been very spotty, who's taking him? Who's giving up assets for half a season of Severino where he may get hurt again? And I don't want to trade Peralta, but he's the rental piece, but he'd be cheap to re-sign, so I wouldn't want to trade him. But he could net you something of value, and that is something that LI has brought up in the past. Before the season, you would trade Peralta, but I still don't. If we're 8 games over 500 in a playoff spot, they're not trading anybody. They might try to add a cheap bat at that point. I don't know. We don't have tradable pieces now. If we completely fall out of things, then look to move Torres, maybe look to move Bader and a bullpen arm or two. But right now, we're not sellers. And if we're in the same spot a month from now, we're not going to be sellers.
And it would never be the case because Hal Steinbrenner has said clearly, even in his last interview with Michael Kay show, that he believes that they should make the playoffs every year. They will go for it. And he says this is not the city to rebuild, right? He fully believes that, so I wouldn't be expecting anything other than the Yankees to go for it. Plus, you look at what the Philadelphia Phillies did last year by winning the World Series. And they were at this stage last year, they were really struggling. But they made the wild card, and then they went on to win and get to the World Series. So that is a pretty good example that there's still a chance if you make the wild card, right? But if I were the Yankees, I'd be smart about this. I would still make long-term decisions. I think you can look at it and go, right, really, the odds of us winning a World Series are very slim with this roster. But we're never going to sell. But we can still make plans for the future. So the first thing I would do is trade or DFA Josh Donaldson. Get that money off the books. There's no reason for him to be here. He's not going to help you moving forward anyway. And then you bring in Peraza to be your third baseman. Okay, that's still a long-term move, and he's going to develop at the major league level for the next couple months. That's a long-term move with a little bit of a short-term gain as well. I think that's the first thing that I would do. Then the next thing I would do is, I'd wait to the trade deadline and then bring in a veteran outfielder because they do desperately need a left fielder. But, I mean, as Rob said a few minutes ago, the reason why you don't rebuild on the fly and the reason why you don't make massive deals on the fly at the trade deadline is because you're putting the ball in the other team's court. We had the opportunity in the winter to bring in the pieces that we needed to win a World Series, but we didn't do it because of Brian Cashman. We had to bring in a left fielder over the winter. Brian Cashman thought he was too smart for that. So I was always against that idea because if you wait to the trade deadline, the power is no longer with you. You no longer have any leverage. It's the other team that holds that left fielder that you want that has the leverage. You know, they can either choose to allow him to go, but at a steep price, or they could be competing themselves and they need to be unavailable. So it's a mark of stupidity that Brian Cashman went all in on Brian Reynolds, and because he didn't get Brian Reynolds, he thought, oh, we'll just wait it out till the trade deadline, and maybe he'll become available. Well, no, he's actually extended his contract, and the Pirates are actually doing pretty well. So again, that's the risk that you take if you go, oh, okay, I don't like the price right now. I don't like the left fielders right now. I'm just going to wait it out. Well, you could wait to the trade deadline, and the guys that you want that can help us aren't available, or they're going to be far too expensive, and that's all Brian Cashman's fault. So that's why you don't rebuild at a trade deadline. That's why you don't try and go all out at a trade deadline, because the moves that you need to make should have been done in the winter. And that's all Brian Cashman's fault. We've been doing this for weeks. We all know what Brian Cashman's failings are. He's a complete disaster right now. He's a disaster class of a general manager. But the very first thing that I would do, as I've said, I would make long-term moves with short-term games. That's not going to massively affect the roster. Cut ties with Josh Donaldson. That probably gives you a little bit of a short-term boost, but definitely a long-term outlook. And I think that's the first thing that I would do.
Yeah, I just don't want to see, like we've seen so many times in the past, all the missed opportunities, whether it's in free agency or the trade deadline. You know, we didn't want to give up anything for Verlander. Look what he did with Houston. You know, we didn't want to sign Machado or Harper in the offseason. We didn't want to make the trade for not every prospect is going to make it to the major leagues. Why are we not selecting a few that we could move for players that are already MLB proven? You know, that can be, you know, big time contributors to a successful run. Championships cannot be guaranteed, but having a roster that gives the organization, the players themselves, and the fan base the utmost confidence that they are going to go balls out and just leave everything on the field. The Yankees have not had the history of making those moves for players that would put us in that position. That's where it's getting a little bit frustrating, especially seeing, you know, we don't know what's going to happen with Tampa in the second half also. Let's keep that in mind. Remember, the Yankees, you know.
I think we can safely say they won the division. Sorry.
Well, don't feel I was going to say, we thought we had it in, you know, we thought we could, you know, sleepwalk.
Yeah, but they're a much better run team than we are.
We almost got caught. And I know that they're run. I know that organizations are run two totally different ways. I'm not denying that. But there's still another half of baseball to be played. You never know.
It still doesn't change the fact that we should be giving opportunities to two younger players. Florial's like 25. But again, I don't think he's going to be the savior, but it wouldn't kill you to try it, because as good as McKinney has been, it could go away quickly. As good as Bowers has been, he hasn't been consistent. There was a point where he was on fire and then he went cold, and he's hitting a little bit better lately, and he's been hot and cold or lukewarm or cool. You know, he hasn't really been great. You can replace him. I just don't know why they don't give – and it's two very simple things that you can do. You send somebody down like Cabrera, who's been sent up and down and up and down. It's doing him no favors coming up and down whenever there's an injury. You might as well get Florial up here, let Cabrera work on some things in AAA, and see if Florial can provide a spark to this offense. And then when he's healthy, get Peraza up here, get Donaldson off this team, and then you have a legitimate outfielder playing left field, along with Bader in center field, and then McKinney can handle right just fine, and Bowers if he has to play. And then you have IKF off the bench that can play everywhere. You have Peraza that can play third or second. You have DJ who can play third or second. You have Torres at second, Volpe's at short, Rizzo's at first, and maybe things work out. And then later on, you can maybe see if Rortvedt gets up here, if Higgy becomes a trade piece, if a team needs a backup catcher, maybe that's an option. Austin Wells would be great, but he needs to get to AAA first. I still don't know why he's not in AAA, at least right now, but that's another conversation. But there are moves they can make right now that can prepare you for the deadline in a month. Because let's say Florial comes up here and he's just like 250 with a 320, 330 on base. His slugging is good. His OPS is 750 or higher. And that's just solid numbers. They're nothing spectacular, but it's better than what you've been getting from guys like IKF and for when we had him, Aaron Hicks and all these different guys we've tried out there. Why not give it a shot? That's just the question I've been asking for so long is why not? It won't hurt you because this offense isn't scoring. Even yesterday, we had to survive until the 8th inning. Like, why not just give it a shot and see what they can do? Because if Florial stinks up the joint, if he gets legit playing time from, let's say, tomorrow till August 1st, and he's really bad, you cut him again, and more than likely no one's picking him up. You have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose by giving him a shot right now. And you have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain by getting Peraza up here because you can let him develop here where he needs to be developing, and you get rid of the question of, is Josh Donaldson going to turn it around? What are you trying to unlock in a 37-year-old washed-up third baseman? There's nothing left to unlock. There's a video compilation that comes up every single time Josh Donaldson strikes out of him taking a pitch right down the middle to start an at-bat and then swinging and missing for strike 3 on a pitch right there. And you see that his bat speed is there. There's nothing left to unlock. These are two moves that you can make right now that could prevent you from having to make a desperation trade at the deadline. And then even if you don't make any moves, you don't sell or you don't buy, you just kind of roll it with this team and maybe you sneak in and who knows what happens. That is a thing that Hal Steinbrenner says all the time. But why not? That's just my question. It's been a question for the last 2 weeks since we've lost Judge is why not? What do you have to lose by getting these guys up here and getting rid of some dead weight on this roster? Baltimore just called up a top prospect, and they're like 3 games out of first place. They're doing it with a winning team, a really good team that doesn't really need a lot of help, yet they're saying, hey, this kid's tearing it up. Let's get him up here. They're not wasting time, and they're a team that we wish we were right now when it comes to the record. Why aren't we doing these things? Yet we're here to come the Yankees saying, I still think there's something in that 37-year-old third baseman who can't hit right now. I think there's something still there. Why are we so behind the 8 ball when it comes to how to put the team together? Every team in baseball would have done this if they had a guy like Peraza tearing it up and a guy like Donaldson just taking up a spot. They would have cut him, ate the money, and said, let's get Peraza up here now. But the Yankees still try to sell you that this was a good trade and we need to get every little ounce out of it that we can. There's nothing left to gain from this trade, and if there is, it comes from Ben Rortvedt. But they don't want to call him up because Kyle Higashioka is starting to hit a little bit. It's just it's so backwards.
First of all, credit to Rob. You're spot on, man. It's really, really good what you were saying there. Also, to add to that point, so we saw Hal Steinbrenner jump to his defense. We've seen Brian Cashman jump to his defense. Aaron Boone's been jumping to his defense for the last few weeks. How's that helped Josh Donaldson?
None.
He's absolutely nosedived. He's done nothing. He's actually been worse, and he had a massive error, which embarrassed the Yankees recently. So clearly, this idea that the Yankees are afraid to call people out is real. They're afraid to call anybody out. What about holding people accountable? Maybe you might actually get a slightly better performance because Josh Donaldson, you gave him all that room. You're like, oh, there's still more. There's still more to see. He's great. He's fantastic. And then he's made an absolute ass of both of them for defending him the last week. So stop it. There's nothing more to see with Josh Donaldson. There was never anything more to see about him. He's done. He's toast. And if he does somehow turn it around at another organization, that still doesn't mean that the Yankees are wrong to let go of him because he's not the right fit here. That has to stop. Stop selling us things that aren't true. So that's the big thing. But I do want to end on a positive note. Possibly a positive note. Do you guys think that Stanton and LeMahieu are turning things around because their at-bats have been better this weekend?
Rob, you go first.
LeMahieu, maybe, because that double yesterday looked really nice. But then the same game, he had his typical ground ball double play that he's so prone to. Stan had a big single, but he earlier had a disgusting looking strikeout where it took him down to a knee. So it's like if they are trending upwards, it's like when you see the flat line and then it just kind of ticks up a little bit, like the tiniest little beat.
That's right. That's it.
But it's better. It's better.
I should have gone first.
Better than nothing, I guess. But I'm hoping that because Stanton hit it hard and LeMahieu getting the ball the other way and elevated. Oh, I thought it was a home run. That's a good sign. But we need it to happen more often. I need to see Stanton get like a 2-hit night where he hits maybe a home run or a couple of hard hit doubles, something like that. And LeMahieu I don't need the power from him. Just be a singles, doubles hitter and get his bat back in the top of the order and get him back to being DJ. But if these couple of hits that they had is a sign of potentially things to come, then I'm looking at it as a positive. But I still saw
the only thing I would say about Stan was I thought that he had a better balance on his swing. Like he looked like there was one fly out where it looked like he squared up to the ball properly, and which we weren't seeing for the last couple of weeks. So maybe that's a slight sign that he was trending in the right direction. And that was a hard hit single. So the only thing I know for a fact is that he will get hot at some point. At some point this year, he's going to be red hot, and his OPS is going to be 1,000 for a 2-3 week stretch. It's just getting him to that stage. I do genuinely believe that he's going to turn it around at some point. And the same with LeMahieu. He can't possibly be this bad. And I like some of the swings recently. This weekend, he's starting to hit a couple of doubles, and you're starting to think, hey, that's the old DJ. Still too early to tell, but the at-bats have been better this weekend. Not fixed, but better.
Yeah, I do like over the weekend. You did see more so with LeMahieu than Stanton, of course. That he might not have been getting the results, but he didn't look as off balance at the plate than he has looked. So I think maybe having the game he had yesterday, with the big hit, they have the off day. They're traveling to Oakland. I think that might benefit LeMahieu and Stanton at the same time. I know sometimes you get a big game from Stanton, then they'll always give him an off day, and it just never gives him a rhythm. I think that this might be different this time because the whole team is off. It's just a travel day, and so I am hoping that going out to Oakland kind of wakes them up a little bit. I mean, obviously, there's going to be no crowd to play for, but at least they'll be. They're not going to be facing some of the best pitching that the league has to offer. So I think the Oakland series can be one of those series that kind of maybe gets those guys rolling. Hopefully,
it has to be.
Hopefully, DJ too, not JD too, going back to Oakland, hitting in that park. Maybe we get a better. I'm not going to expect a great series, but a better series from him. And so that's always a possibility when they return to a park that they're familiar with. And so we'll just have to wait and see. But we'll discuss that, how the series gets started on Wednesday when we return at 10 a.m. Just remember, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button.
Steve Chim is right, though, about DJ. He is missing fastballs that he's never missed in his career before. So there is a worry for sure.
I don't think they're back completely, but I think that they're, like you said, they're kind of on that uptick.
I like the Rob's description. That beep.
Yep.
That's it.
That's going to wrap things up for us on Pitch Like Chronicles. I'm Uncle Tats. I've been here with Rob, Donald, everybody in the chat. We always appreciate you hanging out with us, giving us your feedback, your comments, your critics. But as always, wear your Pitch Like your pride. And and played hard.